In the moments when you feel that it's unfair, when you feel like you don't have support, when you feel like you don't know what to do and you're asking the question, Anton, what should I do in those moments when I don't know what my next step is? My response is just lead. Sometimes you got to lead yourself. Sometimes you need to lead the people around you. Sometimes you need to lead bigger than that, but you won't know what you need to do until you decide to lead.
Hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. This is part 2 of an incredible conversation I had with Anton Gunn about the audacity of leadership. So if you didn't listen to part 1, I highly recommend going back. This is a really powerful 2-part conversation. If you're new to the podcast, let me just pause first and say welcome. I'm Tosca DiMatteo. I'm the founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting, and I do the work at the intersection of personal growth and professional breakthroughs. I'm a keynote speaker, coach, and facilitator of deep conversations. If you want to learn more about how I can help you or your organization, please visit CoachTosca.com. Anton Gunn is a former senior advisor to President Barack Obama and the world's leading authority on socially conscious leadership. He has a master's degree in social work from University of Southern Carolina and was a resident fellow at Harvard. He is the best-selling author of The Presidential Principle and has been featured in Time Magazine, The Wall Street Journal, Inc. Magazine, and so much more. From playing SEC football and being the first African-American in history elected to the South Carolina legislature from his district early in his career to now serving as CEO of 937 Strategy Group and serving on multiple boards, he has spent his life helping people build diverse, high-performing teams and world-class leadership culture. So without further ado, let's jump in to part 2. I want to ask a little bit about your love of hip-hop in terms of what it did for your life at these very hard moments. Because I know this is a big part of what you're passionate about. And you've even done a Harvard course incorporating hip hop. So what did it mean for you at this time of your life?
Some people could say life is a movie. All of our lives are movies. And we go to different scenes. We go different segments of our life that are different scenes in the movie, different parts of the story. And every great movie has a soundtrack. Matter of fact, some of the best soundtracks are what actually makes the movie worth going to see. And so for me, hip hop is the soundtrack of my life. Even when I was in those dark moments, the only thing that kept me getting up was the soundtrack of groups like Mobb Deep, like Nas's Illmatic. So 94, 95, when I was in those dark moments, and Nas has a song called Life's a Bitch, and then you die. That's why you get high, because you never know when you're going to go. I didn't want to get high, but I knew that life was going to be rough on me. And so I needed to find a way to survive. The music is the through line of my life, right? And I'm 52 as I'm recording this right now. As we're recording this, I'm 52 years old. Hip hop has been around for 52 years. It started in 1973, the same year that I was born. So the birth of hip hop and the birth of Anton Gunn happened in the same 12-month period. And so I came alive and I came into adulthood as hip hop came alive and came into adulthood. So the music is the soundtrack to my life. And the mentality of hip hop is how I see myself, that you're not going to have the best circumstances when you start. You're not going to have all of the tools in the toolbox. That there may be people who even throw you away, like a lot of the young Black and Latino kids in New York City were thrown away in the 1970s. Their schools were failing. They didn't have a lot of money. The buildings in the Bronx were burnt out. They didn't have electricity. They had nothing, but they turned that nothing into something. And even when they didn't see the something, they projected a belief system that they had a color TV so they can watch the Knicks play basketball. They didn't own a color TV. They didn't have a Cadillac with a 3MZ, but nonetheless, they projected that. So that belief system was there. And so as I was going through my dark times, the music was a voice that reached to me that said, Anton, better is possible. That if these kids can make it in their circumstances, you can make it too. You just got to look for the pathway and look for the opportunities. So I would feel sorry for myself in 1 minute, but then the music would pick me back up and pump me back up. And then I have another ounce of adversity, but the music would pick me back up and pump me back up. So whether it's Nas, whether it's Mobb Deep, whether it's Public Enemy, whether it's KRS-One, I could always find a song that became the soundtrack for the moment that I was in. And because of that, I was able to just keep myself motivated to get up the next day and to do the next thing. Even if I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I was going to get up again and go to this telemarketing job and give them the best that I could. I was going to go to this law firm and be the best courier that they ever saw. I was going to take these shelves down faster than anybody else and finish the job ahead of schedule so they can give me the next job. I was going to do something because that is a hip hop mentality.
Yes, I love this. And I especially love it because it's a tool in the toolbox to get unstuck. When you're having a shit day, don't forget that music is there for you, right? I talk all the time about the vibrations of the music is what changes us. And to not forget that it can be something we could put in our toolbox and remind ourselves, oh, what if I jam out to this? If I just put this on blast, it could change my moment. It could change my day. And it's these small things that help us get unstuck. We don't take these big leaps and bounds. There's no magic bullet or, it's these small things every day that we choose to get ourselves out of the mud. And by the way, I don't know if you already have it, but I'm just saying, if you want to talk about value adds, Spotify playlist, I'm just saying, do we have you have one that do you share? Can I get like the soundtrack of Anton? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, you know what was so amazing about you raising this is because just this week, I talk so much about hip hop and I make all of these playlists on iTunes in my iPhone that I have. And maybe some of them I can share, but I need to make it more accessible to people. So a lot of people use Spotify. So I think I'm actually going to build some. I don't have any right now, but I will definitely put one together that is a soundtrack. And I literally have them from everything. So like I have a playlist called Music to Drive By. So whenever I'm taking long trips by car, these are only the songs that I play when I'm driving by car. I have a birthday playlist. These are the songs that I play every year on my birthday. When I move to a new city, or if I'm like, when I say move to a new city, I've lived a lot of places. But whenever I come back to a place that I call home, I have a playlist called Guess Who's Back, which is the songs that I play when I come back. So I literally, again, when I say soundtrack of my life, I make playlists for almost every kind of experience. As a keynote speaker, I'll give you this one. I'm a keynote speaker. I do about 40 or 50 keynotes a year around the country. And because I played college football, as an athlete, if you ever watch the pregame, you'll see players have headphones on their heads when they're warming up before a game, is because they have a game day playlist, okay? Mm-hmm. So when I was a football player, I had a game day playlist, which was a CD that I made of certain songs, right? But now as a speaker, I have a game day playlist that when I wake up out of the bed, I bring my Bluetooth, my small JBL Bluetooth that I have in my hotel room, that from the moment I wake up, I play a playlist that the last song is timed to 1 hour before I walk on stage. So literally, I have a soundtrack that sets my mind and my intention of what I need to be doing to prepare myself to get on stage. And here's the closing song that when I get on stage. It's a song by Eric B. and Rakim, and it's called Move the Crowd. And I sing the whole second verse of this song, but I put my own remix on it, which is, how can I move this crowd? First of all, ain't no mistakes allowed. Here's the instructions. Put it together. It's simple, ain't it? But quite clever. Some of you been trying to speak for years, but weak ideas irritating my ears. Is this the best that you can make? If not, if you got more, I'll wait. But don't make me wait too long, because I'm going to move on that stage floor and I'm going to put something smooth on. So turn up my mic. It's better when it's loud, because I'm about to move this crowd. I say that to myself before I step on stage. And then I kill it as a keynote speaker and get a standing ovation. And then after the keynote is over, I have a second playlist that I play after the job is well done. So I got soundtracks everywhere.
Yes. Oh, these are coming. I have a JBL. Where is it? I don't have it right behind me. I usually do, but I also have a playlist for when I need pump up, and I call it Rockstar Reminder.
Yes.
But I'm definitely a
Yes.
hip hop girl,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of hip hop on there and R&B.
Yeah.
But yes, and here's what I love about what you shared about the celebration piece. That you honor yourself and you're like, yes, and now I get to celebrate and like close that loop with your nervous system. I'm always talking about celebration and I know you talk about it in your book too. And
Yes.
yeah, as an important factor. So yes, oh my gosh, I love that. And to be continued on the Anton playlist. We're all going to be waiting for it. So I want to come back to the thread of your story because gosh, we haven't even talked about all the like the crazy badass experiences with the president. So you work for Lenora, am I saying it right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, she gave you a chance, like smart woman. Something tells me that wasn't pity. Something tells me she knew there was a knowing within her for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I see it. So then what happens? So you're in this whole new field. And part of what I want to ask you about this early work, where your responsibility with Lenora, and tell me if I'm getting it wrong, where your responsibility was to build power and the people that you met to teach them how to tell their stories and help them give a voice. I'd love to hear how you were doing this empowerment work to help other people own their power while you were still coming out of your hole and into your power. So how did you do that work when you were in a hard place?
Yeah. So I got out of the hard place very quickly because of Lenora.
Mm.
So I had a boss who made it her role and responsibility to invest in me and empower me. So when I started working with her, like the first 3 months at work was a revolutionary experience because Lenora retrained me how to think and how to analyze systems and organizations and to see where, as an individual, I had power. So, people talk about knowledge is power. Lenora gave me a lot of knowledge, but what she gave me more than just knowledge is she taught me how to apply that knowledge because applied knowledge is actually power, okay? We can know a thing, right? Like all of us knows that we should eat healthy and we should exercise. We know that, right? But most of America is overweight, obese, and don't exercise nearly enough. So knowing is not enough. You have to apply what you know. And Lenora taught me in the better part of my orientation period of 90 days, she taught me what I needed to know and how to apply it. And I started to have more agency and more ability to feel like that I did have the ability to do more than what I thought I could do 6 months before or just 90 days before. So she was the fulcrum point that like invested in me. She like literally gave me like when I say gave me things, let me give you an example. Lenora was a leader of leaders, and she would get invited many times to serve on panels. She would get invited to go through leadership development programs or get access to rooms where, high-level people are. And Lenora had such confidence and security in herself that she would say, Anton, you should go to this meeting, not me. Anton, I'm going to put your name in to go to this training program because although it would be good for me, it would be more impactful for you at your age to go. She used to say things that, like, what just blow my mind. She says, I want you to be better than me at your age than I am at my age. And she was like 7 or 8 years older than me. So here I am in my 20s. She's now trying to give me tools, information, resources, because she wanted me to be better than her. And I saw her as like this superhero, ain't no way I can be smarter than Lenora. Ain't no way I can know more than Lenora. Ain't no way I can do more than Lenora. There was no way I can do that. But she invested in me. So she gave me that power pack, that battery in my back. And the number one lesson is that real leaders build power in others. That's what she taught me. And so my job was to reciprocate that same thing to people in communities who were told that they were less than, that they didn't have anything else. I mean, I knocked on doors in public housing projects. I talked to single moms who lived in housing units who were told that the reason why they were in the projects because they failed, they were dumb, they were stupid, that they made the mistakes, that they're only getting what they deserve, and their self-esteem was in the toilet. And I knew differently because Lenora taught me that systems are broken, systems are flawed, systems are designed in ways that elevate some people but hurt others. And these were the people who were being hurt by the system. And so the only way we can change the system is to get them involved. But they're never going to get involved if they don't believe that they actually have the power to change things. And so my work became teaching them how they had power, teaching them how they can change things, showing them how the system worked. Because the more they could see that this was not your fault, but this was by design, then they could then say, well, if it's not my fault, then what do we do next? And then that's what I want them to think is what we can do next and show them this is how we change things. And so I found myself more than anything else motivating these single moms with 2 kids who were told that they were worthless, that you have value, that you are worthy, that you have experience. And you know what? You're a citizen and you have the ability to vote. So these people will respond to you because they respond to citizens. It's just that this community never comes to the city council meeting. That other neighborhood is always at the city council meeting because they know they have power. You have the same power that they do, and you have a greater need. And so those are the things that I did working at Fair Share for Lenora, and it really built me into a leader who understood how to lead change, how to lead social movements, how to organize for action, and have agency over the things that I see are wrong.
Wow. I mean, it's fascinating to me to hear those early days of understanding power and understanding that we have to take action on the power that we do have. Again, going back to that theme of like, we're not powerless, that we get to make choices to change, not just ourselves, but the environments that we're in, the policies, all of that good stuff. And so for you, because this was just an opportunity, right, that presented itself. So were you passionate about it from the moment that you walked in? Like, or was it something that you discovered about what you were passionate about?
Yeah, great question. This will take you back to my conversation with Myron, okay? So here's what Myron knew about me. Myron knew that I despised injustice and unfairness. Myron knew me in my college football days, and he knew that I felt that my college football experience was unfair and that I was treated unjustly and that I was railing against the system. You know, I became a student activist to some degree around what was going on in college, right? So Myron knew that I despised unfairness. He also knew Lenora and that her organization was an organization that was focused on looking at things that were unfair and unjust and applying people-powered changes to make it more just and to make it more fair. So he knew that about Lenora and saw that she had a vehicle to lead change in her organization. He knew that I was a person who despised injustice and was acting out and was frustrated and stuck because of injustice, but didn't have a place to channel my energy. So I was always passionate about it. And even if you take it back to hip hop, my favorite rap group of all time is Public Enemy. Like Public Enemy gave me my social consciousness and showed me that in America, there's a lot of injustice if you are a Black man. The prison industrial complex and all of these other things that I despise that injustice. And so Public Enemy was a soundtrack of my life. That's why Chuck D of Public Enemy wrote the foreword to my first book, because his words spoke to my existence around wanting to fight the power, and which is the power system that perpetuates injustice and unfairness, and being an active part of fighting the power. So it was always there for me. It was always there. It was maybe it was an undercurrent or an underbelly of some sort, but it was a through line that was inside of me that Lenora gave me, not just a way to process it, but a way to channel it into doing something good that was going to be meaningful and make a difference in people's lives. Like there were families that were food insecure, and we did work to change the process of how people apply for food stamps and the SNAP program. We made it easier for them, the people to get food. So I felt like it's wrong for people to be hungry and not have food. And now you mean to tell me that my job is to do something to make that right? That was like, giving me $1 million. I didn't even make a lot of money at Fair Share. My salary doing this work was $18,500 a year. And then after 6 months, I got a raise of $500 for $19,000 a year. My salary was $19,000 a year. So I wasn't getting rich doing this, but I was having an abundance of wealth of seeing how I was impacting people's lives positively. And so it was always there. I despise injustice. That was a passion that was inside of me, but I didn't have any way to constructively put it into practice. And Lenora gave me that.
I love that. I love that. It goes back to like that being around people that could see and being willing to listen to, hey, this is what you're passionate about. This is what your skill is. And because so many people come to me when they're like, I don't know what I want to do next. And we're not taught about how do you figure out the next phase of your career? Where can this go? Or where do these skill sets lead you? Or like really understanding the depth of your passions, because the passion isn't about, it's usually not that top level thing. It's usually not, accounting is my passion. It's something deeper than that. And getting to that deeper passions that we have, I think are the clues for what we actually want and what we desire in the journey. And that doesn't mean we have to know the destination.
Correct.
All right. Let me just take pause for this content really quick and share a message from one of my generous sponsors. As you know, one of the things I do here on the Unlock Lab is to help you get to know yourself better. And one aspect of this is understanding how your energy works. That's why I love human design. It helps you understand your energetic blueprint so you can come back home to yourself. If you'd like to learn more about your unique energetic signature, my friend Holly does this incredible work, and she's an amazing person. You can go to humandesignbyholly.com to download your free chart to find out which of the 5 human design types you are. If you're wondering, I'm a generator. You can also visit her website to book a one-on-one reading. These unique readings will help you understand your personal energetic signature and so much more. Here's the great thing. Holly was super generous in giving Unlock Lab listeners a 25% off discount when booking your first reading. For this discount, use the code UNLOCKLAB, one word, all caps, when booking at humandesignbyholly.com. For the link and the code, see this episode's show notes. All right, now back to our conversation. And I hope you take a look at what human design is. I think it's pretty cool. And that brings me to my next question too around, all right, so you had this Fair Share, beautiful example of leadership and empowerment and somebody who supported you. And where did it go from here? Talk me through these next steps and how you ended up in the Oval Office.
Yes. Yeah. So the pathway to the most powerful room on planet Earth, which is the Oval Office, is that I worked for Lenora for a year and a half, and she came in and she told me, Anton, I want you to read this job description. She gave me a job description, and actually it wasn't even a year and a half, it was just 13 months. So she gives me this job description, and the job description is for a job at another organization. And she says, you need to apply for this job. And I said, am I doing that bad of a job that you're trying to get rid of me? I mean, I love working for you and working at this place. She says, no, Anton, you're doing a great job, but I can't afford to pay you what you deserve to be paid. You need to be making more money. So I'm going to help you to get this job, and you get this job, and I'm going to continue to mentor you and support you in your career. So that began her kicking me out the nest. It's kind of like a, mama bird kicking a baby bird out of the nest. And the next 10 years, I had progressive positions in the nonprofit sector, leading in the nonprofit organization. And the full circle moment is that Lenora calls me 5 years into that 10-year of her post world to tell me that she was leaving Fair Share to go do something different, and that she thought that I should apply for the job as CEO. And so I ended up getting the job, her old job. So the whole time that I was working for her and her mentoring me and her kicking me out of the nest, she was preparing me to succeed her as the next executive director of the organization. So I became executive director. I stayed there for 7 years, leading the organization and taking it to a higher level than it ever been, more profile than it ever have, all kinds of great things. But there were still lots of challenges in the world and lots of things that felt unfair. And we made some changes, but there were some things that were frustrating to me. So much so that I was like, I can't really make a difference as an outsider. I can't do it as an outsider. I'm making some change, but I can't make the big change. I need to be closer to the seat of power. So I ran for public office. I ran for the South Carolina House of Representatives, and I lost. Okay, not surprisingly, most people, when they run for office the first time, they normally lose. But I only lost by 298 votes out of 14,000. And because it was so close, I could almost taste it that I was almost there. So I didn't give up on my dream of running for office, but there was somebody else during that same time who was thinking about running for office. And it was a skinny US Senator from Illinois named Barack Obama, who had never stepped foot in South Carolina and never campaigned here, but needed to campaign here. And you can read this story in Time magazine. I won't give you all of the nitty-gritty details, but here's the main point. Barack Obama didn't know me from a man in the moon. I didn't know him at all. But I phone banked his office. I called his Senate office 13 times, demanding that somebody call me back. Because if Barack Obama is going to run for president, he needs me involved. I live in South Carolina. And if he doesn't call me back, he's going to lose. And somebody on the other end of the telephone believed me enough to give him the message, and he called me back. So he was a junior senator from Illinois at the time, had not announced for president, was forming an exploratory committee, and I'm on the phone with him telling him everything that he needs to know about South Carolina and that he needs me involved. So he hires me in 2007 to be one of his early staffers on his presidential campaign, a campaign that nobody thought was going anywhere because he was 30 points down to Hillary Clinton and John Edwards and Bill Richardson and Chris Dodd. And like everybody was ahead of him and nobody thought he had a shot at all. But I picked him up in my car the first time he landed on the plane in South Carolina, put my daughter's car seat in the back, swept her Cheerios out of the seat, and I drove him to his first meeting in South Carolina as a political candidate. And 13 months later, he won the South Carolina primary. And he asked me to continue on his campaign, and I told him no. And he says, Anton, you don't want me to be president? I said, Barack, I do want you to be president, but I want to be in the state legislature in South Carolina more than I want you to be president because I want to make a difference in my state. I feel like I can have a bigger impact in South Carolina than I can by running off to you to Virginia or Colorado or some other state, helping you to continue to campaign. And he said, that's fair enough. He shook my hand, said, thank you. And I'll keep running and you keep running. So on November 4th, 2008, the same day Barack Obama was elected president of the United States, I got elected to the South Carolina House of Representatives. And I became the first African-American in history, the first Democrat in 25 years to represent my district, which was District 79, which is a suburb of Columbia. And now I was in a seat of power as an elected leader. And I only served one term because the second year that I was in the state legislature was the second year Barack Obama was president, and he passed the Affordable Care Act. And when he passed the Affordable Care Act, his team reached out to me and said, Anton, we know your passion around healthcare, around the things that are going on. And the South is where there are the largest numbers of people who are uninsured, who don't have healthcare, who would benefit from the Affordable Care Act. We need you to help us to come and implement the law. So I walked away from my legislative seat, serving the 90,000 people who lived in my district and the 4 million people who lived in the state of South Carolina, to help the president implement a law that ultimately helped 50 million people get health insurance coverage. And a part of my role was to serve as an advisor on how we communicated about the Affordable Care Act. And that led me to the Oval Office.
If I had one of those machines that could play like the audience clapping, "Rah!" Like, that's what we'd be playing right now. There's so much I love about your journey and what you just shared about it. And what I feel like I really want to highlight in this moment is that you never compromised what was important to you in terms of your desire for impact and your vision for
Yes.
how you could have the impact that you wanted. And I think the other thing that I want to highlight is that you being who you are, you leading the way that you do is what opened doors. There was no forcing, but that you got the call. And, look, personally in my own journey, right? That's what I strive for. If I show up who I am in service, that I hope that I get the phone calls, because people
Mm-hmm.
see what's possible and you exemplify that. This part of your story sounds like, oh, it was so easy and it just kind of came to you and people were
No,
calling you. But
no,
that's not what it was. Like,
no. To that point is that I just shared the highlights of that story,
right.
but there was a lot of powerlessness in those moments, right? Even when I got elected to the legislature, I was one of 124 members and I was a freshman. So there were a lot of lawmakers who were more powerful than me, who could get bills passed out of committee where I couldn't get them. And so some of the same frustration, again, going back to the patterns
Yeah.
that repeat themselves over and over again, I felt powerless sometimes. I had the big title, state legislator. I'm being interviewed by the television station for the State of the Union address. And I look powerful. I look pizzazz and everything. But I also was a broke state legislator because in South Carolina, legislature doesn't pay a full-time salary. It only pays $10,400 a year. But it's so busy, you don't have time to hold down a full-time job. So when I say broke, I literally came home one day while I'm in the state legislature to a cutoff notice from the power company going to cut my utilities off because I hadn't paid the bill, right? So I felt powerless at times in there, okay? But no matter what was going on, I was committed that I was going to do something of consequence and to have an impact, even if it was a sacrifice for me. And if you look throughout history at some of the greatest, most impactful leaders, we only remember the highlights. So we remember the highlights of Mother Teresa, gaining sainthood because of her service and her commitment to ending poverty and serving people in developing countries. But her passion was always there around poverty. We know the highlights of Martin Luther King Jr. and the I Have a Dream speech and all the amazing things he did for America and for the world. But we never talk about the dark days of him never being near his family because the worry about them and somebody trying to kill him and kill them. We don't talk about the dark days of having to be on the road at night. We don't talk about the dark days of actually getting beat up on the bridge at Bloody Sunday with John Lewis, head was cracked open, right? So we know about the highlights. We don't talk about the lowlights or the pain points or the PowerPoints, but remember always there's a through line of what they were focused on. Mother Teresa was focused on ending poverty. Dr. King was focused on ending injustice and ending segregation. And my through line has always been around doing whatever it takes to make it right. The world is inherently unfair. It's always going to be unfair, right? But as a leader, when you encounter unfairness, what are you going to do to try to make it right? You may not be able to solve everything, but there is something that you can do to make it right. That's what I've been teaching to leaders from stages is that it may be wrong in your culture, it may be wrong in your company, it may be wrong on your team. There may be things that are out of your control, but there is something that you can do to make it right. And my only goal is to teach you to be useful to the people around you. That's what you can do to make it right. Be useful to the people around you. That's where the success lies. And that's been the through line of my life and my journey.
Well, I mean, first of all, mic drop on that. What a beautiful purpose and mission that you have. And I know we're coming up on time, and I'm mindful of that because you've spent so much time here. Recapping even this piece that you're talking about, to me, it's like very in line with how I define influence and the juxtaposition of influence, which is this juxtaposition of we have immense power, but we are not in control.
Mm,
And understanding those two things to
mhm.
move forward. And I think your story really exemplifies that in so many beautiful ways. So before we close, I want to ask, well, two questions. Number one, is there anything on the table that you want to share in this moment that you feel we haven't
Yeah,
talked about? And the second piece is, where should people go if they want to connect or
yeah.
learn more about you? Because I already know there's some fan folks out there right now that want to get deeper into your stories.
Well, fantastic. So I'm going to go with the second one first, and that is for everyone who is hearing my voice or getting access to this podcast, I'm going to give you a free resource that's going to help you by giving you the things that I teach in my presentations. I'm going to literally give away the most valuable, powerful points that I teach in my presentations and some other leadership resources that you can use real time to overcome your feelings of powerlessness, those moments of unfairness. I'm going to give it to you. If you go to antongunn.com/toolkit, you give me your name and your email address, and I will send you what I call my Just Lead Toolkit, because that's what I teach. In the moments when you feel that it's unfair, when you feel like you don't have support, when you feel like you don't know what to do and you're asking the question, Anton, what should I do in those moments when I don't know what my next step is? My response is just lead. Sometimes you got to lead yourself. Sometimes you need to lead the people around you. Sometimes you need to lead bigger than that, but you won't know what you need to do until you decide to lead. So go to antongunn.com/toolkit and get the Just Lead Toolkit. And if there was one thing that I would want to share with your audience, it's a great quote from Miles Monroe, who I think embodies what my whole life existence is about. And that quote is this: success without a successor is a failure. And as a leader, if you don't use your time on this earth, your talent, your resources, or what you have been given and what's been stewarded to you, if you don't use those things to leave the world a better place than you found it, you might achieve some success in your life, but you will never achieve significance. And significance only happens when you stop chasing success and you focus on what you could do for other people.
Ooh, that's powerful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for saying yes to this
Yeah.
small and mighty podcast and this conversation. You inspired me in that room with the NSA, and I was like, damn, like, I don't want this to be the end. So thank you for not letting that be the end
Yeah.
of hearing your beautiful lessons and your wisdom. And thank you for your service, all of your service in all the ways.
Thank you.
Really quick, want to ask you, you said you have big audacious goals, like there's more that you want to do. I'd love to
Mhm.
hear what that is, in case there's any way that I can be a support in what you're looking for yourself next.
Yeah. So the big things for me is that I've not reached the level of organizational impact that I want. I really do believe that I want to transform the American democracy by transforming the American workplace. See, the reason why we have such divisiveness in our politics and our communities is because of how we treat people at work and the environments that we have in the workplace. And so my focus is transforming the American workplace by helping leaders to become agents of change in the company that they work for and in the communities in which they live. So I'm in the lab working right now. And what I mean lab, I'm refining some content, also creating some resources. And so when I get them done, probably in the fall, September, I probably won't launch them until 2026, but I'll be following back up and maybe we'll come back on to talk about that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think, I'm all about that. Yeah, I spent 25 years in corporate. So like that's really the
Yeah.
impetus for why I do what I do too, to change those
Yep.
environments. So like I'm lockstep with that. I love that. And yeah, I look forward to seeing how I can support you as you enter in 2026 and do more of that work.
Fantastic.
All right, Anton, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Have a great day.
If you received value from this conversation, I'd love to ask you a huge favor. Please like, rate, review this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on and share it with someone you think needs to hear these messages. Thank you, as always, for joining me in the Unlock Lab, and ciao for now.